So welcome back. Today I am reading from chapter 6, titled Shamanism, in Joseph Campbell's book on primitive mythology. Well, the birds all presently came to their creator, Black Hawk Tzim, and asked, "What shall we eat?" He lifted his hand to each of the 4 directions, and because he had so much power, all kinds of seeds fell into his hand, and he scattered them. The birds went to pick them up, but the seeds all turned to insects, worms, grasshoppers, and they moved and hopped around so that the birds at first could not catch them. Then Hawk Tzim was trying to tease them. He said, "Oh yes, it's hard work to catch those flies and grasshoppers, but you can do it." And so they all chased the grasshoppers and other insects around, and that is why they are doing that to this day. Now presently all the birds and animals came to Black Hawk Tzim and told him that they wanted a companion. They wanted man. "You're not going to be with us all the time," they said, and he said, "I guess that will be true. Someday perhaps I shall go to a place where no one will see me." And so he told them to gather objects from all directions. They brought pollen from all kinds of plants, and they added red ochre, white clay, white stone, jet, turquoise, red stone, opal, abalone, and assorted valuable stones. When they had put these before Black Hawk Tzim, he told them to withdraw to a distance. He stood to the east, then to the south, then to the west, then to the north. He took pollen and traced with it the outline of a figure on the ground. An outline just like that of his own body. Then he placed the precious stones and other objects inside this outline, and they became flesh and bones. The veins were of turquoise, the blood of red ochre, the skin of coral, the bones of white rock, the fingernails were of Mexican opal, the pupil of the eye of jet, the whites of the eyes of abalone, the marrow in the bones of white clay, and the teeth too were of opal. He took a dark cloud, and out of it fashioned the hair. It becomes a white cloud when you are old. The Hawk Tzim sent wind into the form that he had formed and made it animate. The worlds at the end of our fingers indicate the path of the wind at the time of the creation. And at death, the wind leaves the body from the soles of the feet, where the worlds at the bottom of the feet represent the path of the wind in its exit. The man was lying down, face downward, with his arms outstretched, and the birds tried to look, but Black Hawk Tzim forbade them to do so. For now the man was coming to life. The man braced himself, leaning on his arms. "Do not look," said Hawk Tzim to the birds, who were now very much excited. And it is because the birds and animals were so eager to see that people are so curious today. Just as you are eager to hear the rest of this story. "Sit up," Hawk Tzim said to the man. And he then taught him to speak, to laugh, to shout, to walk, and to run. When the birds saw what had been done, they burst into song, as they do in the early morning. But the animals thought that this man should have a companion, and so Black Hawk Tzim put him to sleep, and when the man's eyes became very heavy, he began to dream. He was dreaming that someone, a girl, was sitting beside him. And when he woke up, there was a woman sitting there. He spoke to her, and she answered. He laughed, and she laughed. "Let us both get up," he said, and they rose. "Let us walk," he said, and he led her the first 4 steps, right, left, right, left. "Run," he said, and they both ran. And then once again the birds burst into song, so that the two should have pleasant music and not be lonesome. Now, all of this took place, not on the level of the earth on which we are now living, but below, in the womb of the earth. And it was dark, and there was neither sun nor moon at that time. So White and Black Hawksine together took a little sun and a little moon out of their bags, caused them to grow, and then sent them up into the air, where they moved from north to south, shedding light all around. This caused a great deal of excitement among the people, the animals, the birds, and the people. But there were a lot of shamans among them at that time, all kinds of shamans among the people, men and women who claimed to have power from all sorts of things. These saw the sun going from north to south and began to talk. One said, "I made the sun." Another said, "No, I did." They began quarreling, and the Hawksine ordered them not to talk like that. But they kept making claims and fighting. One said, "I think I'll make the sun stop overhead, so that there will be no night. But no, I guess I'll let it go. We need some time to rest and sleep." Another said, "Perhaps I'll get rid of the moon. We really don't require any light at night." But the sun rose the second day, and the birds and animals were happy. The next day it was the same. When noon of the fourth day came, however, the shamans, in spite of what the Hawksine had told them, continued to talk. There was an eclipse. The sun went right up through a hole overhead, and the moon followed, and that is why we have eclipses today. One of the Hawksine said to the boastful shamans, "All right, you people say you have power. Now bring back the sun." So they all lined up. In one line were the shamans, and in another all the birds and animals. The shamans began to perform, singing songs and making ceremonies. They showed everything they knew. Some would sit singing and then disappear into the earth, leaving only their eyes sticking out, then return. But this did not bring back the sun. It was only to show that they had power. Some swallowed arrows, which would come out of their flesh at their stomachs. Some swallowed feathers, some swallowed whole spruce trees and spat them up again, but they were still without the sun and moon. Then White Hawksine said, "All you people are doing pretty well, but I don't think you are bringing the sun back. Your time is up." He turned to the birds and animals. "All right," he said, "now it is your turn." They all began to speak to one another politely, as though they were brothers-in-law. But the Hawksine said, "You must do something more than speak to one another in a polite way. Get up and do something with your power and make the sun come back." The grasshopper was the first to try. He stretched forth his hand to the four directions, and when he brought it back, he was holding bread. The deer stretched out his hand to the four directions, and when he brought it back, he was holding yucca fruit. The bear produced chokeberries in the same way, and the groundhog berries, the chipmunk strawberries, the turkey maize, and so it went with all. But though the Hawksine were pleased with these gifts, the people were still without the sun and moon. Thereupon the Hawksine themselves began to do something. They sent for thunder of four colors from the four directions. And these thunders brought clouds of the four colors, from which rain fell, then sending for rainbow to make it beautiful while the seeds that the people had produced were planted. The Hawksine made a sand painting with the four little colored mounds in a row, into which they put the seeds. The birds and the animals sang, and presently all the little mounds began to grow. The seeds began to sprout, and the four mounds of colored earth merged and became one mountain, which continued to rise. The Hawksine then selected 12 shamans, who had been particularly spectacular in their magical performances, and painting 6 of them blue all over to represent the summer season, and 6 white to represent the winter, called them to Sanati. And that was the origin of the Sanati Dance Society of the Jicarilla Apache. After that, the Haktin made 6 clowns, painting them white with 4 black horizontal bands, one across the face, one across the chest, and one across the upper leg, and one across the lower. The Sanati and clowns then joined the people in their dance to make the mountain grow. It would be difficult to find a clearer statement of the process by which the individualistic shamans, in their Paleolithic style of magical practice, were discredited by the guardians of the group-oriented, comparatively complex organization of a seed-planting, food-growing community. Lined up, fitted into uniform, they were given a place in the liturgical structure of a larger whole. The episode thus represents the victory of a socially anointed priesthood over the highly dangerous and unpredictable force of individual endowment. And the teller of the Jicarilla Apache story himself explained the necessity for incorporating the shamans in the ceremonial system. These people, he said, had ceremonies of their own, which they derived from various sources, from animals, from fire, from the turkey, from frogs, and from other things. They could not be left out. They had power, and they had to help too. I do not know of any myth that represents more clearly than this the crisis that must have faced the societies of the Old World when the Neolithic order of the earth-bound villages began to make its power felt in the gradual conquest of the most habitable portions of the earth. The situation in Arizona and New Mexico at the period of the discovery of America was culturally much like that which must have prevailed in the Near and Middle East, and in Europe from the 4th to 2nd millenniums BC, when the rigid patterns proper to an orderly settlement were being imposed on peoples used to the freedom and vicissitudes of the hunt. And if we turn our eyes to the mythologies of the Hindus, Persians, Greeks, Celts, and Germans, we immediately recognize in the well-known, oft-recited tales of the conquest of the Titans by the gods analogies to this legend of the subjugation of the shamans by the Haktin. The Titans, dwarfs, and giants are represented as the powers of an earlier mythological age, crude and loutish, egoistic and lawless, in contrast to the comely gods whose reign of heavenly order harmoniously governs the worlds of nature and man. The giants were overthrown, pinned beneath mountains, exiled to the rugged regions at the bounds of the earth, and as long as the power of the gods can keep them there, the people, the animals, the birds, and all living things will know the blessings of a world ruled by law. In the Hindu sacred books, there is a myth that appears frequently of the gods and titans cooperating under the supervision of the 2 supreme deities, Vishnu and Shiva, to churn the milky ocean for its butter. They took the world mountain as a churning stick, and the world serpent as a twirling rope, and wrapped the serpent round the mountain. Then the gods, taking hold of the head end of the snake and the demons of the tail, while Vishnu supported the world mountain, they churned for 1,000 years and produced in the end the butter of immortality. It is almost impossible not to think of this myth when reading of the efforts of the quarrelsome shamans and orderly people under the supervision of the Apache Haktin to make the world mountain grow and carry them to the world of light. The Sanati and clowns, we are told, joined the people in their dance, and the mountain grew until its top nearly reached the hole through which the sun and moon had disappeared. And it remained then only to construct 4 ladders of light of the 4 colors up which the people could ascend to the surface of our present earth. The 6 clowns went ahead with magical whips to chase disease away, and were followed by the hawk team. And then the Sonati came, after them the people and animals, and when they came up onto the earth, said the teller of the story, it was just like a child being born from its mother. The place of emergence is the womb of the earth. We'll stop there for now. Next time we'll continue with chapter 6 on shamanism. Thank you for joining me, and hope you enjoyed today's reading.